We're back, baby. It's a Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. The dust has settled, gents. We are unfortunately out of the college football playoff. Valiant effort. Slow start, like we said yesterday. We gave it all we got at the end, but just fell short, unfortunately. Now we head to recruiting. We head to the offseason. Xavier Worthy, one of the better receivers we've seen, definitely since we've been there, arguably the best. And Shadley had a really strong, top tier Longhorn career at the wide receiver position. He'll be foregoing his senior year and be going pro. Alfred Collins is expected to return to the 40 acres, which is very exciting. Him and Verdon Broughton could be the next guys up to replace Byron Murphy if he leaves. And obviously Tavondre Sweat, who was fantastic. He'll be going pro following the senior season. And Bo Davis, one of our favorite coaches. Arguably, he could be our favorite pound for pound coach. We love Sark, but he could be our favorite pound. A lot of pounds, big boy. He could be going back to his alma mater at LSU. That's the rumor mill right now. We do not want that. And then a lot of guys balling in the Under Armour All-American Bowl. But I do want to start off before we get into all those topics and say, well, it's very deflating, the loss we had. We're already seeing some guys from Bama transfer. Their center, Seth McLaughlin, he's going to be moving on. Tight end, a wide receiver. And it's good so far. Anything could happen, but it's good so far. The only real loss, we've had, notably, is Malik. And we've lost other guys in the transfer portal, but he's probably been the biggest loss. And we haven't seen anybody depart from the transfer portal after our loss to Washington so far. So far, so good. I think that's a really strong positive. But we'll start with Xavier Worthy. What are your guys' thoughts on him departing for the NFL?
I mean, it's the right decision at the end of the day. If you're mocked in multiple mock drafts to go in the first round, you take that, especially as a wide receiver. And, some people have him listed as the third or the fourth best receiver in this draft class. And I think there's a lot of upside there. I mean, you see what Devontae Smith's been able to do with the Eagles, and I think he draws a lot of comparisons there. And just in terms of the frame and the skill set and the speed that he has as a return man, and as just a wide receiver, you go out and take that money. And, he battled a couple of injuries this season with the ankles. So I think that, it definitely shakes you up a little bit trying to return for another season, but you're never going to make as much money as you do on your NFL contract, even with NIL in the mix now. I'm happy for Xavier. Obviously, it was awesome that he put in some great years and cemented himself as one of the great wide receivers at Texas, but it's the right decision. At the end of the day, you got to go out and chase that money, and we're going to be fine. We've got plenty of guys that are going to be able to fill in and step in those shoes. And that's why we were so active this recruiting class with wide receivers and in the transfer portal. Matthew Golden coming in, Ryan Wingo coming in. We're also supposed to be talking to Ryan Williams, who is a Bama commit right now. He's taking an official visit over at Texas in a week. So, I mean, there's no shortage of weapons coming into Texas, and I think we'll be just fine.
Nice. Love that. Toss?
Yeah, I mean, I think statistically, it's fair to say that Xavier Worthy is the third best Longhorn wide receiver of all time, behind Roy Williams and Jordan Shipley. So, his touchdown numbers, his yards, like what he did, and obviously this year being Big 12 all conference as a return specialist as well. His impact for the Longhorns since Sark has gotten here, a recruit that Sark brought in, and one of the highly touted recruits in that first year that Sark was here. He's been through the trials and tribulation of this Texas football era with Steve Sarkisian. And he really paved the way for our program and our offense to go to the SEC with some good momentum. And so, I think Longhorn fans, I've seen it all over social media, are incredibly grateful for what Xavier Worthy Players too. I mean, just the adulation across the board. I mean, Josh, you mentioned we haven't had anyone since the loss in the semifinal announce that they're going to transfer. But what we have had is a lot of the players giving homage to each other, saying that they're brothers with each other. It's been really, really cool to see just how guys are talking about Jordan Whittington, because obviously Whittington's not going to be there any longer. And what he meant as a mentor to a lot of these guys. And of course, after X posted his video yesterday, which was really, really cool. Just a great tribute to his, career at Texas, but also the work that he's put in, as a kid growing up playing wide receiver in the state of Texas, and then going to the University of Texas and now going to the pros. So yeah, Nick, I like what you said about it. Any team that gets him in the NFL, they're going to get a true weapon, a guy that can be put all across the field in two phases of the game with tremendous speed just afterburners that a lot of guys, can't even catch up to. So they're getting a great weapon. I don't know if he's going to go in the first round. I expect that he will not go in the first round, based off of just some of the comps that people have and some of the other available wide receivers. But we certainly would love to see him go at the end of the first, and we'd be happier than anyone, outside of him and his family and the team that's getting him, if he did. So rooting for him. And I'll say as well, he was paired alongside A.D. Mitchell this entire season, and just from the post-game comments from AD, it seems like he's likely going to go to the draft as well. But there's still hope for, JT to maybe come back. And we've talked about this, before the college football semifinal, just what more he could prove being the tight end 1 in next year's class if he stayed, because I think he'd be able to, put up some nasty numbers in that first year in the SEC. But shout out and salute to X. I mean, what a great season and a great career.
Yeah, it's going to be first on X. It's going to be interesting to see where he falls, because I think we know the first 3 wide receivers taken will be Marvin Harrison Jr. We saw in full display Rome Odunze against us from Washington, and Malik Neighbors was a top tier dog. Then it kind of gets to Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors' running mate, who looked pretty strong actually in their most recent bowl game. He was the top dog, not Malik Neighbors receiving in that one. Keon Coleman from Florida State, who obviously sat out his bowl game, but he had a really great season. Troy Franklin from Oregon's flying up boards. Walker from UNC, and the receiver from South Carolina. All those guys. Yeah, all those guys are top tier guys. But our guys are right there in the mix. AD and Xavier could go anywhere from the 4th and 5th receivers taken, to that last end of the, of that group. But still, I think they'll be in the top 50, both of them, at worst case scenario, which you take that, in my opinion. Being an early second round pick, there's no shake on that. And it's a really deep class, but if you stay, next year could be even deeper. Nick, you mentioned the ankle injuries that Xavier dealt with, and you don't want to necessarily risk that, because you're right. You don't make as much money in the NFL and in NIL as you'll ever make in the NFL. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter what university you play for. And before you hop in there, Nick, I just wanted to say on the point to you, Jay Witt, it gives me vibes of, I don't know if y'all remember when we had Derek Johnson on, and Derek Johnson was talking kind of about how he walked so the next year's team could run type deal. Like they got the program to that like last echelon, and then they VY, and then they took it over the edge. And I'm not saying like Jordan Whittington is like, Derek Johnson just got inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame this year. I'm not saying he's had that caliber career, but the way people revere him, the way we revere him, the effort he gave, and the effort this class gave, and this group of seniors gave, and upperclassmen will be going to the draft, it seems like they kind of got us to this point, so the next group in the SEC can take us over the hump. It's kind of like a vibe I'm getting. That just reminded me of that from the past interview we've had.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very reminiscent of what he was talking about, and you kind of just look at the path that we're taking right now. I mean, we've made significant strides in all different areas, playing on the field, off the field. I feel like this team has been closer together than any other team. We mentioned what they all said to each other on Twitter and on Instagram, and how supportive that they are of each other. So yeah, I completely agree with that. To your point really quickly on Xavier and AD going to the draft, I feel like these are guys that can test exceptionally well when it comes to pro days and when it comes to the combine, that they might be able to fly up draft boards just because of their athletic abilities. We know exactly what kind of athlete Xavier Worthy is, and I'm not so sure that the rest of the world knows yet. I mean, yes, there are scouts at every single game that take a look, but he is a rare talent. And I really think that a lot of people, they might end up reaching for him because of his speed and what he's able to do with the ball in his hands. I think your hands and drops can be something that's worked on. I think that's really the biggest knock on him, is that he's had some drops, and so that can be worked on. You can't coach speed though. He
can't coach speed, baby. That we know.
It's the tale as old as time. They've been saying that since the Mayan days and the Aztecs. Can't coach speed.
It's one of the hand-me-downs from the Aztecs that they passed along with us.
Yeah, definitely.
That and irrigation, right, Toss?
Yep.
Pretty sure that was the Romans, but
the Romans or the Egyptians. I knew you'd know.
Well, they also knew that you couldn't coach speed because they weren't able to outrun the the volcano of
Oh,
Pompeii.
Jesus Christ, dude.
So anyway,
All right,
Xavier,
best deal.
is it too soon? Too soon?
That is a little too soon for that
Okay.
one.
Well, Xavier, on the other hand, I think has a real chance to shoot up some draft boards. I just because of what his athletic makeup is, and I think the same thing with AD Mitchell. I mean, he's a freak athlete too.
Yeah.
I think his route running is exceptional. His big playability where he can go up and get the ball, high vertical, good hands, and red zone threat. I mean, we look at teams across the NFL all the time. The Chiefs are one of those teams that have struggled in the red zone this year, and they don't have a big body target besides Travis Kelce. And you look no further, you can get AD Mitchell, towards the end of the first round or early second round, and you're putting him immediately on a Super Bowl contending team with a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, I don't know why you'd want to leave that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I AD Mitchell is an absolute stud, and he's a wide receiver
Vertical is
one.
ridiculous.
He's a wide receiver one in the NFL. He does it all. I mean, you can ask questions about the versatility of what Xavier Worthy can do just because of his size, right? If you're looking at it from an NFL scout standpoint, the guy's 175 pounds. So, I get that, and I get that criticism, but he has always been a guy that is, he's broken tackles pretty well at his size. He'll put on some weight. I'm excited to see what he can do. AD Mitchell, he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the hands, he's a zone killer. He can win you balls 50-50 in the red zone on those fade routes. Obviously, we saw it in display in that Washington game. I think Jordan Whittington post game said, he's it's more like 80-20 as opposed to a 50-50 ball when you've got AD Mitchell going up for contested catches. So I mean, he's got the swagger too, right? I mean, he reminds me a lot of like a CeeDee Lamb type. I know he doesn't necessarily have the same yak that CeeDee had at Oklahoma, where he was, once he got the ball, it was impossible to bring that guy down. But I like the comparison between the two guys. We've got Mark here in the comments
I know.
saying that he's glad to see. Shout out Mark, Hook 'em Horns. Mark, glad to see Alfred Collins is sticking around another year. It's not official yet, but I think that it's presumed to be official that he's coming back. And I think that's absolutely huge, because if we're losing Byron Murphy and we're losing T'Vondre Sweat, Alfred Collins, who at that point would be a super senior, coming back to be the defensive tackle, the main guy in the middle of the defensive line for us, a guy that knows the system, a guy that made some good plays in that Washington game. A couple of the short stops that we got on third down and fourth down were a credit to Alfred Collins coming into that game. We talked about it last show. We were rotating a lot of defensive linemen because you had to against Washington. So it would be really, really big for him to officially say that he's coming back. And you love to see that kind of momentum that we could get from a personnel standpoint. And you want to have those leaders in the locker room, right? Like we're talking about Jay Witt.
Oh yeah.
He'll be gone, but we still need veteran leaders in that locker room. And that's absolutely what Alfred Collins would be.
AC for sure, man. And he was good last year too. And he kind of just got jumped in the depth chart by Sweat and Murphy, who kind of outplayed him this year. But if you're Alfred Collins, you look at those guys and you go, hey, look, like they had monster years in the system. I'm the next guy up. I'm going to be the guy here now next year. And I'll, work on my game a little bit. And maybe I can make that second round grade or third round grade next year and really help my chances. Because gone are the days where, like, all right, we're going to take the youngest guy and we're going to go for youth. No, these guys are staying in college a little bit longer. And look at what it's worked out for Michael Penix Jr., who's probably gone from like a day 3 pick to like a top 15 pick here in the NFL draft. And then the last thing I'll say on Worthy, because you guys are really hitting such great points. We've seen it in drafts all the time. And you brought up CeeDee Lamb, and in his draft class, he was the third receiver taken. Probably should have been the first, him or Justin Jefferson. But Henry Ruggs went first of those receivers. And off the field stuff aside, that was pretty much just off testing and speed. So we've seen that like speed and testing that could really pump a guy up. And so Xavier Worthy, if he can really test, like y'all are saying, exceptionally well, AD Mitchell too, at the combine and pro days, then he'll see his name called a bit earlier than, the worst case scenario. But AC coming back is big. And I do want to say the Bo Davis stuff scares me a little bit. I know LSU's his alma mater. He's coached there before, but he is such an integral piece to where we have gotten as a program, to the development of these players, to the production of these players in the defensive line. And I don't want to say he might be, as important as the players, truthfully. Like having a guy in the building that with that pedigree, with that championship pedigree, he's got 3 national championships under his belt, I believe. So, from his time at Bama, So I really think that having him back is imperative, and we have to throw in whatever kind of bag we can. And if he wants to go to LSU, he wants to go back to LSU. But he is such a guy that we need to really, get over that last bit of hump and get to a national championship and get a ring for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, like the culture that we've been trying to establish with him here and with Sark, I understand like a guy leaving for his alma mater, but there's plenty of time to do that. I think right now he wants to. I would, if I were him, and this is like a very biased take, but I'd want to stick with the program to see this through, right? Lead them into the SEC and help them, navigate through this new conference and try to win an SEC championship and just build off the momentum. I think a lot of fans are looking at this season and looking at the players that are departing due to the NFL draft. And we're a little somber because we feel like we've blown an opportunity to win a national championship with the best team that we've seen in the last 15 years, probably.
Not even close.
But at the end of the day, we might be better next season. We literally might be a better team than we were this season, because I seriously think that all these new people that are coming in, whether it's transfer portal, whether it's recruiting classes, whether it's another year under Quinn's belt to get more mature and to get more healthy, to get more weapons in the building. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks had a breakout year, but getting him healthy again and letting him, ease his way back into it with the 3-man backfield with Blue and Baxter, obviously it'd be awesome if Sanders stayed, but letting that secondary who got picked apart in this game, that was probably the biggest weakness of our game, letting them mature another year, getting other freshmen in here like Makuba, or transfers like Makuba, and letting those freshmen, grow a little bit. So I don't think we're in a bad place. And that just kind of goes off of what I'm thinking with Bo Davis. Like, stick it out a little bit, let's see what else you can get out of this. If you can, I mean, look, being able to get lucky and have guys like Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, kind of come out of nowhere, 3-star recruits, and work their way in the first, second round of the NFL draft and be, the number 1 and 2 rated guys on PFF. That's huge. If you can do that again, though, next season with Alfred Collins, I know he was a top 10 PFF guy. Mark, you mentioned that. And, there's other guys coming in like Vernon Broughton, and I talk about Trill Carter. That is even more to add to your resume. Tashard Choice turned down a job with the Rams, and he might get more job offers after this season because of what he did with the running backs. Now, for sure, Bo might get the same love. So stick it out one more year, in my opinion.
Yeah,
let it ride.
I would love that. And obviously he's been a guy that's been very loyal to the Horns program. He joined the Texas coaching staff in 2011 as our defensive line coach. Presumably, if he gets an offer from LSU, it will be to be their defensive coordinator. So that's my expectation. Today Brian Kelly announced that Matt House and the 3 defensive assistants that were with Matt House won't return. I think they're paying all 4 of those coaches a combined $5.5 million or something like that in the buyout.
Golly, let's go, coach. Like I'll suck just as bad as them, and I'll take half the money. Like,
yeah. So
I think Bo Davis is going for a similar job. I think he's also going for that's the rumor. I mean, look, I thought that too. Like, if he's going to be the defensive coordinator for the LSU Tigers, like that's really tough to turn down. Sure, and I get that, and that's your alma mater. But I'm also with you, Nick. I'm sorry to cut you, T, but like, you started something here and you've been here before. So you've been through the dark days, like see it through. Like, we've gotten like this far. We have all this depth in the defensive line and all these guys coming in. You have Simmons coming in. You have Alex January coming in. You have Trey Moore from the transfer portal coming in. So you have all this depth on your defensive line. Like, you can really make something happen here. And if we lose AD, we lose Worthy, Christian Villanueva in our comments. He's saying if we have Sanders back next year, we're nasty. Boom, Alex Pretty. If we do, obviously we would love to have Sanders back. But if we don't, like, we have the triple Bs at the running back helm. We have an offensive line, like Banks is back, Campbell's back. Like, a lot of our offensive line is back, and they're getting even better and older. There has to be something to be.
We got the top offensive tackle in the 24 prospect class, recruiting class.
Brandon Brown. Has to be exactly. Yeah, in him.
Brandon Baker.
There has to be something to be said about developing guys and allowing guys to grow. Like, that is, to me, still, yes, transfer portal great, recruiting great, but that to me is still paramount. Like, that's where these teams win. These guys grow in their systems and they get better and better year in and year out. Like, that's what happened to Joe Burrow. Like, we talk about him having the greatest season of all time. Like, his first year in LSU, he was like fine, just okay, passable, like a day 3 pick. And now he's, cool Joe. So there has to be something to be said about the development of players. And I think a lot of these guys coming back, even if we lose our receivers, we have Niblett, we have Moore, we obviously have Jonte Cook, who we're all really high on, and these guys step up. And that's what these programs, that are really great have. Like, guys come in and out all the time. They lose guys to the draft all the time. Yeah. And we have to, if we want to be a great program, we have to be prepared and be okay with that happening to us, because that's part of the game.
And I'm not a fan of, shitting on players ever, but I do think that besides our secondary, which was, kind of weak because of the inexperience there, we'd mentioned Makuba coming in, and Mark, you mentioned getting Makuba is huge. It's going to be massive. But the offensive line, I think on the right side, we were a little weak. If you even look at that last drive that we had in this game in the college football playoff, it was probably the worst pass block that you've seen all game long. And Quinn had no time. He had to throw the ball out. And it happened 3 times in that drive.
Yeah.
So I think with Christian Jones graduating, who was the most penalized player on the offensive line, had some crucial penalties in this game, and allowing sacks and creating pressure for Quinn, I think that's going to be huge as well. Getting our offensive line completely fortified on every side, not just in the interior, not just with Banks, but also on the other side as well. So we've got some good things coming our way. I think it's somber that we're sitting here on January 3rd and we're knocked out of contention now, but at the end of the day, this is a huge building block season, and I think it's only up from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just quickly to mention, Bet Online, one of our partners, go to Bet Online, use the promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, get 50% off on your first welcome bonus. Yeah, they released their early 2025 CFP National Championship odds, and the Texas Longhorns are the 4th highest odds to win the national championship. Let me double check. It's Georgia's 5-1, Alabama's 11-2, Ohio State is 7-1, and Texas is 9-1.
See, I don't know why Ohio State's above us. Like, they don't even know who their
quarterback is. Like, yeah, you know who he's dangerous.
Look, it's early odds. Yeah, Ole Miss, obviously they're in the mix. They're 14-1. I think they have them 7th on the list. Behind Oregon, LSU, Michigan, those are the 3 teams that are right after Texas. But obviously, it's early odds. Point being is that we are in the mix, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're very much going to be competing next year, expecting to have a playoff spot and to go further than that. From Mark, Evan Stewart, yay or nay? Evan Stewart posted on Twitter yesterday that basically kind of a cryptic, wherever I do go, I just hope the training staff can tell me the actual diagnosis of my injuries for my physical and mental health. So clearly he wasn't getting, the treatment physically that he needed. And that's been affecting him on the mental side, which is certainly, there's always a correlation there, right? For these athletes, especially college athletes who are young men. I don't think we need Evan Stewart, but if it's the right fit, and I know that Sark and his staff were vetting him, then, we're certainly not going to push away that talent. But this seems like, I'm just kind of reading between the lines here, reading into the tea leaves, that he might need a full off-season recovery. And even then, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get from him going into next season from a physical standpoint. So, he's a Texas guy, right? He's from the state of Texas. I want him to be successful, but it seems like he's certainly not going to be in College Station any longer.
Look, if he wants to be a Texas Longhorn, and if it works out, then, we want guys who want to be in the building. But if it's, kind of like a wishy-washy thing where, it's all about him, then I don't need that. We have plenty of guys that are ready to step up and play. I mean, we're super high on Jonte Cook. We mentioned that. We're super high on Matthew Golden, who's coming in from Houston. Ryan Wingo, who's going to make a big impact as a freshman, I believe. Coming
looks
out
good
of
in the practices for Under Armour All-American. Yeah, looks good.
Like, we have, there's no shortage of weapons, and at the end of the day, like, it's always nice to add guys, but I'd rather not cloud up a receiving room with a bunch of egos where it's like, I want to play, it's all about me, I need to get mine, because that's clearly was not the case this year with our receiving room. Everyone fed off of each other, and they all succeeded, and I truly believe that all 3 of our receivers that are going to the draft, and if 80 decides to declare, are going to be drafted. I think Whittington will be a day 3 pick.
Gamer. Why not? He'll get on a roster 100%. And you're right. We need we guys, not me guys. Like we don't need guys that are like all about get me the ball.
Right.
Like Xavier Worthy, we're talking about a first round talent, and AD Mitchell was frustrated, but like they understood throughout the entire season, like it's best play available, not not all about that, not all about getting the rock. Before we rock, I do want to shout out because we've talked about Ryan Wingo a little bit. He looks great in the Under Armour All-American practices. You know who's been dominating? Trey Owens, baby. He was a 3-star. Now he's a 4-star. And look, he doesn't have the name brand as Arch Manning, but like this is a guy that really, you see it on Twitter. He loves Texas. He's hook 'em horns all day on social media. And he's a guy that wants to be there. So I'm pulling for this dude so hard. I hope he gets his shot at some point. And, he's getting better and better. And that's the kind of guys we need. The guys that are working, the guys that are getting better, not guys just relying on skill and talent in high school, but the guys that want to work.
Cole McCoy, 3-star recruit.
Boom, baby. All right, gents. See you guys next time. Hook 'em horns, as always. We love you. We'll be back with Quan Cosby next time. So we'll get his thoughts on the unfortunate loss and what he was seeing boots on the ground at the Sugar Bowl. Hook 'em horns, Fisher DeSopoulos, the DJ himself, Snacks Man Kreider.